Good evening. Fellas, have you ever felt some sort of pleasure when hearing the clicking and clacking of a keyboard? Are you perhaps scared of guns? Do you want to
protect the life cycle?
The typing of the dead. I'm sorry.
The typing of the dead
is a game that has intrigued me ever since I discovered it. It is an adaptation of The House of the Dead 2, but instead of killing zombies and by shooting them to death with a pistol, you type words, phrases, and sentences that leaves them in such awe at your typing speed and prowess that their limbs fly off of their body and die as a result. As weird as the concept may sound, it's stupid fun to mash words and watch the limbs of zombies fly off. This game is also a game. The plot stays the same as House of the Dead 2, taking place 2 years after the events of House of the Dead 1. The game opens with our protagonist getting harassed by a flying midget as he realizes that he's trapped in Italy. We go inside a church and find Mr. Bad Haircut with a stomach ache after eating too much Taco Bell. He gives us his art book full of his OCs as a souvenir before dying, probably. We try to click-clack our way out of this hellhole when we're confronted by the flying midget again, except he brought his gym cell boyfriend to beat our ass. We then type so fast they pass out after suffering an aneurysm. We are then met by an Ozzy Osbourne cosplayer and his wife. We run away because we don't believe in healthy relationships and find ourselves lost in a sketchy neighborhood full of retired snipers still wearing their ghillie suits. Mr. Osbourne and his wife finally catch up with us, but we're interrupted by an Instagram model that forgot to take their fuck-off pills. So we type some sense into her until she falls into the river and dies because we all know that women can't swim. Mr. Osborne gives us a lift until Mrs. Osborne thinks it's a good time to make out, so we get dropped off to protect their privacy. We answer a bunch of questions asked by a group of angry pool noodles until Mrs. Osborne calls asking for help. We then click-clack our way into the place where they were possibly making out when we get chased by a steroid junkie that just robbed a hardware store. We then type so fast that we transcend time and space and fast forward to the point where the steroid junkie dies of a heart attack. We find Mr. Osborne suffering from the same stomach ache Mr. Bad Haircut had earlier, so we take his car keys because he won't be needing it anymore. We then have a good time driving through town, meeting old friends, until an angry police officer tries to arrest us because we don't have a license. We try to type the living shit out of him, but he penalizes us for making mistakes, so we type even harder until he explodes. We then take an elevator because the escalator stopped working and are met with the man behind the slaughter. He rambles on about how the West has fallen and billions must die, and shows us his science project that he made after watching funk edits on TikTok and Instagram. We then watch the perfect Aryan hatch out of its Silicon Valley capsule, ready to destroy all the impurities in the world, but that includes us, so we click-clack some sense into it until it spontaneously explodes. Purple Guy then calls us a soy Wojak for fumbling his plans before jumping off of the World Trade Center and exploding because he accidentally ate a whole bunch of C4 thinking that it was some kind of ice cream. We watch in utter shock and confusion as we are left completely speechless after witnessing what just happened. That is
the typing of the dead.
The thing that everyone already noticed is that the characters use a Dreamcast keyboard hooked up to the console itself and a comically large battery on their back instead of guns, which is appropriate given that we're typing zombies to death and not shooting them. The things you have to type out get longer and much more difficult as you progress through the game, starting off with simple words and evolving into phrases and entire sentences by the end. There are typing challenges that reward you for completing them scattered throughout the levels, which test your speed and accuracy. The bosses present you with typing challenges, with extra steps which spice up the experience. My favorite being Strength, as it lets me type out big sentences to my heart's content. My least favorite being the Hierophant, because of the mechanic where you have to wait for its chest to open before typing. One thing that this game is infamous for is how bad the voice acting is. It's the so bad it's good type that unironically got a good laugh out of me the first time I've heard some of them. Shout out to Goldman, one of the all-time antagonists in gaming. I bet you can tell this guy that his wife died giving birth and he'll respond as if his mom took away his Xbox.
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see?
The sound design is nice and punchy, which ties in really well when you're frantically typing, giving you a machine gun-like feedback, which I really enjoy. The music is quite good, even though most of it is going to be drowned out by the sound effects. My favorite OST has got to be the Magician's theme and the boss theme. This game offers some replay value as you can take different routes depending on which civilians you save. You can unlock coins at the end of each chapter. Getting all the coins in a chapter can give you special rewards like starting off with 2 Molotovs or increasing your continues to 9. There's also arcade mode, boss mode, and drill mode. Arcade mode is basically the original mode without all the bells and whistles, and you have to go through the entire game in a single sitting, as you would in an arcade. It also lacks any and all power-ups and unlockables. Boss mode is where you can choose to fight the bosses only. If you beat all the bosses 5 times, you unlock a boss rush mode where you fight all the bosses in one go. You only get 5 lives and no continues, so it's quite the challenge. Drill mode is a series of mini-games on different typing skills such as accuracy, speed, reflexes, and special keys. Each skill has a minigame associated with it. There is multiplayer, but it's not what you'd expect from a game like this. You'd think that when playing, you're supposed to plug in another USB keyboard and play with a friend, but rather you're supposed to have a separate computer with a copy of the game running while being connected to the same local network. The overall playtime is quite short, at around 40 minutes, including all the cutscenes. There's not really a whole lot in terms of content, but what is present is worthwhile. I find myself returning to this game over and over again because it's fun mashing your keyboard and killing hordes of zombies. You can practice typing in a fun way that isn't tedious and boring. This truly is what they call edutainment.